Well, Trey will be catching up on this game possibly 2 to 3 hours later, but let's preview the start of our Saturday, the triple header. This one, thankfully, on ABC. You talk about pulling your hair out, Trey, not being able to watch this live. Imagine having to boot up the replay of it on True TV, because that's what a couple of fans are going to have to do in the afternoon and the evening. But of course, we're talking about number 10, Miami, on the road at number 7, Texas A&M. As of time of recording, the Aggies are 3.5-point favorites at home. Interesting numbers here on Miami, Trey, to set the scene. No team from the ACC has won a CFP or a New Year's Six game since before COVID. It was 2019, the last time that they did something like that. And Mario Cristobal has certainly done a lot this season to, I think, build Miami back up to the place where you could see them being a championship contender. They didn't make my national championship article when I gave you 6 teams I believed had the goods to win a national championship and be that last team standing. But I think you can squint, right, to get there. That being said, Mario Cristobal just 5-6 versus ranked opponents in his time at Miami. So we'll start with you here. Miami going on the road, they obviously stopped the run really well. Texas A&M needs to be able to run the football, I think, to get that offense moving and grooving. We'll see what the Aggies are doing as far as play calling duties with Colin Klein. He's in the building, but on his way out to Kansas State once the season's wrapped up. They have named wide receiver coach Holman Wiggins as the new offensive coordinator. I don't know what the sharing of duties or the dynamics will be like
Elko
on that
said
side.
It's Klein. Elko said Klein's calling plays.
Okay, so that's certainly a point in A&M's favor. Regardless, though, the Aggies have to be able to establish that run. Elko was not all that reassuring that Le'Veon Moss would be at least a full go for Saturday morning. So battle of the trenches, maybe take it to the air attack. Like, where do your eyes go when you first look at this matchup?
Yeah, I think there's 3 questions I want to answer here. And the first of which, it's going to start with the quarterback position. Who is going to take care of the football and make sure their team stays in position? You talk about a game that could be turned into a defensive slugfest. This could be 2 coaches that just really want to feel each other out. We've seen that from both Miami and Texas A&M this year, right? Like, how many times has A&M been in a close game at halftime and then exploded in the second half, or had a very awful first half, like that South Carolina game, and then had to come back in the second half, right? Miami's kind of had a couple games like that too, where they start slow, they're kind of feeling the opponent out, and then they explode in the second half. So if one of these quarterbacks makes a couple big mistakes in the first half and just hands the other team 10 or 14 points, that could really have things going sideways in a hurry. So put some numbers to it, man. Marcel Reed, 2 interceptions in 3 of his final 4 SEC games. Ironically, all of those were bunched together in the same half. He had 2 in the first half at LSU, 2 in the first half against South Carolina, and 2 in the second half against Texas. And then Carson Beck, 6 of his 10 interceptions this year were in their 2 losses, 4 against Louisville, 2 against SMU. Who's going to take care of the football? You mentioned the run game. I think this is an edge to A&M, especially if Le'Veon Moss comes back, because you look at Miami's run offense, hasn't been great, hasn't really popped a lot this year. They've been relying a lot on Carson Beck's arm and Malachi Toney on the outside. Miami has not done well against the top 40 rush Ds that they face. A&M's actually done fairly well, even against top 20 rush defenses. They did 4 yards of carry against Notre Dame. Without sacks, they had 5.3 against the top 12 Auburn defense, 6.2 against Missouri, 4.6 against Texas. It's more of the same. This is the best statistic rush defense that A&M's seen, but it's more of the same for A&M versus an uptick, I think, for Miami in that same category. And then the last question for me is, can someone other than Malachi Toney step up? Because if Malachi Toney has help, that's when Miami is the most dangerous. In those 2 losses, he still went for almost 140 yards against Louisville. He had a nice day against SMU as well, but there was just no help for him on those days from the ground game or from other receivers stepping up and really taking the pressure off him. So if he can get some help, it's going to be bad news for the Texas A&M defense. But if you're looking for good news as an Aggie fan, A&M's actually done pretty well in shutting down the number 1 receivers on teams. In 8 games this year, they've held the number 1, or in sometimes if it's like kind of a 1A, 1B, they've held that tandem under their season average. So they do a pretty good job on that back end. They do a good job limiting the yards after catch. Miami loves to feast on that as well. So a lot of that, if you can answer those questions for me, I'll tell you who's going to win this game. But I'm leaning A&M at home, guys. I'm going to take A&M to cover this spread at home. I think the crowd's going to put them over the top. Miami struggled with false starts a little bit this year too. And environment's, quite frankly, not as good as what Kyle Field's going to be on Saturday morning. But yeah, if Malachi Toney can get some help on the outside, or if on the flip side, if Le'Veon Moss and Mario Craver can look like their October selves or their September selves, this could make the game go one way or the other big time.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. And to further that topic on Malachi Toney, he's got 84 receptions this year for 970 yards, 11.5 a pop. There are other guys that have higher averages on the team, but second on the team in receptions is 43 catches behind him in Keelan Marion. 41 catches for 557 yards. CJ Daniels, remember we thought he was going to just take the top off this defense.
He's been banged up, right?
He
came back against Pitt, but he's been banged up.
Right, 35 catches for 391. They've got a couple of tight ends that have combined for about 35 receptions, give or take. So offensively, it really does run through Malachi Toney, right? The running game has been good, 1,800 yards on the ground, but it hasn't been great, right? It's not been to a level that you think, oh, this is what's going to beat Texas A&M. Now, caveat, we also said that about Texas in the finale, and sure enough, Texas's offense had the lone 100-plus yard rushing result of their entire season against the Aggies. So fixing the run fits, that's got to be a priority. But I do like your point that, hey, if you can, even if you can just limit what Malachi Toney does, and we know he's going to get some of his, but if you can take away the other options, that's when I think you start to stack the deck in your favor. I think the defensive lines for both teams are the most fascinating matchup for me to watch. Texas A&M tied for first with Oklahoma in sacks with 41. You had Trey Zune, captain left tackle, say that Reuben Baines, we're not going to be worried about him. We're going to handle them. Maybe gave a little bit of bulletin board material to a very good NFL style passing or pass rush for the Canes. I think if A&M can block for Marcel Reed, and if they can establish the run, that's when Marcel quits the happy feet. That's when he delivers the ball downfield with confidence. Mario Craver should be back at 100%. He actually said that in his press conference today. So it feels like A&M is trending towards being healthy, being fully operational, which is exciting. But if that offensive line can't block and Miami can get rushers into the backfield, that's when Marcel starts to break down. I'll take A&M to win the game. I think it's close. I'll take Miami to cover the 3.5-point spread, but I do feel like A&M forces a turnover or two in this game. I think A&M is the worst team in the SEC in forcing turnovers. They've got like 9 on the entire season. Miami's not good at doing it either. I think they have 10 coming in. So really, you talk about turnover margin being critical in each normal game between two defenses that are very good defenses, but that don't force it a lot. I think you magnify the magnitude of a turnover or two in a spot like this. Garrett, what else? What other storylines are you looking at here as the Aggies get set to host the Canes?
For me, I think a lot's been made, not just now, but on a lot of the preview shows that I've seen about how good Miami's defense is and how, shutting down the run game and forcing Marcel to win with his arm. The first point I'm going to make is Marcel has kind of won with his arm at times this season. If you think about South Carolina having to throw them back into that game, if you think about Notre Dame at the beginning of the season, it wasn't efficient, but he was getting it done down the field. Even Arkansas, that was balanced, but he was forced to kind of make some big time throws in that game. If you're counting on Marcel Reed to not be a passer, I have some bad news for Miami fans because he can throw the football. If Le'Veon Moss is back, it's wraps. That's kind of my big note there on sort of the run game. If not, I still think the offense will be persistent in trying to run the football, especially because Miami is 132nd in missed tackle percent. So, like, if that's an option for you, if you're having to do that on that side of the football and contend with the catch and run and contend with guys in space and the screen game and the shallow crossers and everything else that happens there, could be a little bit tough to chase those guys around the park all day if they can stay balanced. But guys, I'm a lot more concerned about Miami's offense being able to do anything. I think we're just taking for granted the fact that, Carson Beck's amazing and he's going to have a great day. He's not a real running threat, and that's been the problem for A&M this year is, guys like Taylor Green or Lenora Sellers, those guys have been the ones that have given him problems. Even Arch Manning a little bit in that game.
Yeah, second half.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you have that running threat, that's that. Carson Beck's just not that guy, right? He's going to sit back in the pocket. He's going to make decisions. And if you can be smart and sound in your assignments, I mean, that's pretty much what you need, especially because as we've kind of talked about, there's a good chance that Miami is kind of just the Malachi Tony show and that's it, right? Like there's a good chance that it's him. There's a big gap, and then maybe there's another playmaker that steps up. Maybe there's a big play every now and then, but if you can take him away, if you can bracket him, if you can, put a safety over the top, not let him get too deep, I think you're going to find yourself having a little bit of success on the defensive side of the football, especially if you let your pass rush get back there. And guys, the A&M defense, if there's one massive thing you can, fault them on, it's been the linebacker play trying to get in their gaps, and it's been them trying to not allow explosive runs. But guys, I looked this up. Miami is 111th in yards before contact, meaning they're not very good at keeping the guys off of them, and they're 122nd in breaking tackles. They're just not going to be able to. I don't think they're going to be able to make those plays, right? I don't think the gaps are going to be there quite as easily because it doesn't seem like that's what their offense is set up to do. They don't really give the running backs a lot of space to work before they can get up to that second level. So if that's not what they're doing, if you can keep them in the longer down and distances, keep them in those, second and long, third and long situations, let your pass rush get after them. I think Aggie offense can kind of just clamp down over the course of 4 quarters. I think the 12th man's going to wear them down over 4 quarters. I really like the Aggies in this one. I think they cover.
It does feel like Carson Beck, like his career could end by throwing a really bad interception, right?
Well,
like that would kind of complete the career arc. It's been a good career for Carson Beck, but he's also had some of those moments that go, that's why you haven't hit that extra level.
Well, and you're telling me in this game, just take all the numbers out of it. You're telling me in this game that Mike Elko, who tends to have his teams ready for challenges, and Marcel Reed, who's been consistent, he's got his mistakes, but he's been consistent this year. Those are the 2 guys you can count on with a home field advantage against Cristobal and Beck. Like, I'll take my chances.
Well, and one last bullet to get out of the holster. Brooks Austin pointed this out, the film guy on Twitter. He said that Texas A&M had all the rushing yards available to them in that game against the Longhorns, and 2 things happened. One, I guess we brought the wrong cleats to play on that cheap turf in DKR because it was like every rushing attempt, a guy was losing his footing, right? Secondly, we went away from it. In the second half, Colin Klein just abandoned the run and put the game fully in Marcel Reed's hands. I think that's going to be a lesson that was learned. And shout out to the Texas fans for making it loud. It was an impressive atmosphere. You're not going to have that to deal with this time. I think it's going to be easier to get back on schedule if you do have a 3 and out, if you do have a turnover that you need to bounce back from because you're at home, right? You're in the friendly confines. So I think there are a lot of factors going the way of Texas A&M. Should be a good game. I'll ask this. Give me kind of like the best case scenario for each team. Like for Texas A&M, the best case scenario is they run all over Miami, right? We've kind of established that. What's the best case scenario for Miami in this game?
I think they turn Marcel Reed over a couple of times early and put A&M in a hole, and A&M just can't climb out of the hole because they're not playing South Carolina. I think that's the best case scenario there. If Marcel Reed has a half like he did in the first half against South Carolina or the second half against Texas, A&M's going to lose this game by 10 points at least. For me, that means they got to keep it simple for Marcel. Do what's been working all year. Don't try to make him into a pocket passer that hits a deep shot on 3rd and 2. But yeah, that's the best case for Miami to me.
It's still going to be too soon in like a decade. But anyways, no, I think the key for Miami here is going to be if you can establish the run and like kind of like what Trey said, jump out to a little bit of a lead, rip off a couple of those big plays, get A&M's defense looking all over the place and reacting instead of just playing their base system and doing what they need to do. If you can do that and kind of establish that off the rip, that sets up your team with a lot of confidence, and you can kind of pull the crowd out of it a little bit to get started. It's going to be tough to pull the 12th man off of it, but if you can go out there, first drive, put up 7 with a, kind of balanced offensive attack and establish that as your game plan for the day, I think that's where they can kind of get into this fight and say, okay, like we can do this, and feel a little bit more comfortable saying, hey, we can, kind of like what Trey's saying, like go after Marcel, right? Get after him, see if we can sack him, see if we can force a mistake, get him a little bit jittery, get us off schedule, right? If they can do that, then I think that Miami's going to look all right.
It will be interesting. Saturday morning, it's going to be nervous for us. There's no doubt. Trey will be watching it after the fact. I'm going to be nervously pacing at my in-laws' house up in the great Midwest. So yeah, we're excited to watch this one. Hopefully we get a nice result for those in maroon and white.